that the inequality is fixable and the insecurity is manageable. We're going to really have to go some in the 21st century to see political violence claim as many innocent lives as it did in the 20th century. Keep in mind, you had, 12 million people killed in World War I, somewhere between 15 and 20 million in World War II, 6 million in the Holocaust, 6 million Jews, 3 million others, 20 million in the political purges in the former Soviet Union between the two world wars and one afterward, 2 million in Cambodia alone, millions in tribal wars in Africa, an untold but large number in the Chinese Cultural Revolution. I mean, we're going to have to really get after it if you expect your generation to claim as many innocents from political violence as was claimed in the 20th century. The difference is you think it could be you this time because of the interdependence of the world. So yes, it's insecure, but it's manageable. It's also an unsustainable world because of climate change, resource depletion, and the fact that between now and 2050, the world's supposed to grow from 6.5 to 9 billion people, with most of the growth in the countries least able to handle it under today's conditions, never mind those. That's all fixable too. So is climate change a problem? Is resource depletion a problem? Is poverty and the fact that 130 million kids never go to school and all this disease that I work on a problem? You bet. It is. But I believe the most important problem is the way people think about it and each other and themselves. The world is awash today in political, religious, almost psychological conflicts which require us to divide up and demonize people who aren't us. And every one of them, in one way or the other, is premised on a very simple idea: that our differences are more important than our common humanity. I would argue that Mother Teresa was asked here, Bono was asked here, and Martin Luther King was asked here because this class believed that they were people who thought our common humanity was more important than our differences. And so look, this Harvard degree and your incredible minds and your spirits that I've gotten a little sense of today, this gives you virtually limitless possibilities. But you have to decide how to think about all this and what to do with your own life in terms of what you really think. I hope that you will share Martin Luther King's dream, embrace Mandela's spirit of reconciliation, support Bono's concern for the poor, and follow Mother Teresa's life into some active service. Ordinary people have more power to do public good than ever before because of the rise of non-governmental organizations, because of the global media culture, because of the internet, which gives people of modest means the power, if they all agree, to change the world. When former President Bush and I were asked to work on the tsunami before we did the Katrina work, Americans, many of whom could not find the Maldives or Sri Lanka on a map, gave $1.2 billion to tsunami aid. 30% of our households gave, half of them gave over the internet. Which means you don't even have to be rich to change the world if enough people agree with you. But we have to do this. Citizen service is a tradition in our country about as old as Harvard, and certainly older than the government. Benjamin Franklin organized the first volunteer fire department in Philadelphia 40 years before the Constitution was ratified. When de Tocqueville came here in 1835, he talked, among other things, about how he was amazed that Americans just were always willing to step up and do something, not wait for someone else to do it. Now we have in America 1,010,000 non-governmental groups, not counting 355,000 religious groups, most of whom are involved in some sort of work to help other people. India has 1 million registered, over 500,000 active. China has 280,000 registered and twice that many not registered because they don't want to be confined. Russia has 400,000, so many that President Putin is trying to restrict them. I wish he wouldn't do that, but it's a high-class problem. There were no NGOs in Russia or China when I became president in 1993. All over the world, we have people who know that they can do things to change. But again, I will say to all of you, there is no challenge we face, no barrier to having your grandchildren here on this beautiful site 50 years from now, more profound than the ideological and emotional divide which continues to demean our common life and undermine our ability to solve our common problems. The simple idea that our differences are more important than our common humanity. When the human genome was sequenced, and the most interesting thing to me as a non-scientist, we finished it my last year I was president, I really rode hard on this thing and kept throwing more money at it. The most interesting thing to me was the discovery that in this human beings with their 3 billion genomes are 99.9% identical genetically. So if you look around this vast crowd today at the military caps and the baseball caps and the cowboy hats and the turbans, if you look at all the different colors of skin, all the heights, all the widths, all the everything, it's all rooted in 0.1% of our genetic makeup. Don't you think it's interesting that not just people you find appalling, but all of the rest of us spend 90% of our lives thinking about that 0.1%? I mean, don't we all? How much of the laugh lines in the speeches were about that? At least I didn't go to Yale, right? That Brown gag was hilarious. Right? All those things. But it's all the same deal, isn't it? I mean, the intellectual premise is that the only thing that really matters about our lives are the distinctions we can draw. Indeed, one of the crassest elements of modern culture, all these sort of talk shows and even a lot of political journalism that sort of focus on this kind of shallow judgmentalism that try to define everybody down by the worst moment in their lives. And it all is about, well, no matter whatever's wrong with me, I'm not that. And yet, you ask Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, and Bono to come here. Nelson Mandela is the most admired person in the world. I got tickled the other night. I wound up at a restaurant in New York with a bunch of friends of mine, and I looked over at 2 tables away, and there was Rush Limbaugh, and who said a few mad things about me. So I went up and shook hands with him and said hello and met his dinner guest. And I came just that close to telling him we were 99.9% the same. But I didn't want to ruin the poor man's dessert, so I let it go. Now, we're laughing about this, but next month I'm making my annual trek to Africa to see the work of my AIDS and development projects and to celebrate with Nelson Mandela his birthday. He's 89. Don't know how many more he'll have. And when I think that I might be 99.9% the same as him, I can't even fathom it.